Assalamu alaikum class. Today our topic is active and passive voice. Previously we have done the practice of narration. We have seen different rules of narration. We have seen why narration was introduced in English grammar, why indirect narration rather was introduced in English grammar when direct narration was there. Fine. Today we are going to touch the topic of active and passive voice. Fine. We have seen in chapter number 1 that a declarative sentence or a sentence have this structure. Okay. Subject or the agent, then it is action, and then it is object or receiver of action. Okay. For example, Salman played cricket. We call it active sentence. Why? Because all the attention is there on Salman. What Salman is doing. Salman has played a game, and that is cricket. Fine. If I change the sequence of the tense of the sentence, I would write it: cricket was played by Salman. No, I have changed the order or the sequence of the tense. What I have done, I have given the position of object here in the beginning. Okay, fine. And then this is the verb, and then this is the subject. Fine. Now we see in this structure that all the attention is there, cricket. Fine. In active form, the object of attention was Salman. But in the passive structure, all our attention is on cricket. Fine. So we have seen, or we can conclude, when the object is more important, fine, than the subject, we always use the passive structure. See, what are different cases? Now we need to know what are different cases when we are using the passive structure. Fine. There are different cases where we use the passive structure. Fine. Number 1. Case number 1 is, fine, when the subject is less important. That is, we do not give importance, or rather we are not interested in knowing what the subject is. For example, there is a building near my home. That building is old building, or you can say there is a rest house near my home. Fine. That rest house, the particular thing about the rest house is that is old, but that the glamorous thing is this now that they have renovated the rest house. Fine. Now which structure I'll be needing to put this information? If I write like this, they have repaired the rest house. Here this information is a little bit unattractive, and I am rather getting deviated from the information of rest house. If I write it in the way, the rest house has been repaired. Fine. And I do not need to know who the subject is. Fine. Whether the administration department or any other person has shown interest in the repair of the building. Fine. Rather, I am quite happy with the information that the rest house has been repaired. Here, my focus of attention is that object. Fine. I am not interested in knowing who the subject is. This is the case where passive voice was needed. Now, in another case, when subject is unknown. Fine. For example, I lost my bag yesterday. Okay, fine. So, who lost it? I do not know. who who was the particular person who lost my bag. Rather, I would say my bag was stolen yesterday. Whenever the doer or the agent or the subject is absent, is unknown, we use the passive structure. This is the second case I'm using the passive form to make my information more attractive. Then is the number 3 situation. See, when subject is obvious, for example, the police arrested the thief. Fine. Of course, I'm very much sure of that the thief was arrested. Fine. This is actually the basic information. Fine. Why? Because I'm quite sure of this is the police is the agent who is behind this action. Fine. But I am not using that information over here. Rather, I am writing my sentence is this way. Then in the end, to develop a story. Sometimes to develop a story that passive, the combination of active and passive structure is important. We cannot sometimes develop a story in just one structure that is active. For example, Harry Potter is an interesting novel J.K. Rowling wrote this novel. Fine. See, I am having a switch of information. In the first sentence, my focus is on the novel. But in the second sentence, I am focusing on the writer. Fine. So, it is not up, the propagation of thought is little bit tricky. So, to make it smooth, I would, the second set structure, I would use like this. It was written by Rowling. Fine. It is better that here again my attention is over here, that it is a pronoun for the Harry Potter. Fine. I haven't switched the attention area, rather I have changed my sentence structure to make it a proper development. See, these are 4 areas where in our daily life we use passive structure. Rather, we would say passive structure is more important here than the active one. Fine. So this is why passive was introduced in English grammar. Okay. Now we are going to see how this passive structure is developed. What are different rules when an active sentence or an agent is given the place after the verb? In the active, the agent is the most important area, fine, but in the sentence, the object is the most important area. Now we are going to study that how an active sentence is changed to a passive sentence. Okay, rather we would say what are different rules. Fine, rules to change active to passive. First of all, we change the order of the sentence. First of all, we have seen that the affirmative sentence has this order. But whenever we change the object, whenever we change the sequence, that becomes object. Object becomes first, verb afterwards, and subject in the end. This is the first rule. What is the rule? We change the positions of subject and object. We change the positions of subject and object. Fine. Rule number 2 is by is used before subject. By is used before subject. For example, Salman wrote a book. Wrote a book. Fine. What I'll be doing? I'll be changing the position of subject and object. A book is coming on the position of subject. A book was written by Salman. Fine. So, by is introduced by the, first of all, the first rule was I am changing the positions of subject and object with each other. The second rule was by was applied, by was used before the agent or the subject. Now the third rule is, what is the third rule to convert a passive structure into active? That is on number 3. Number 3, here we have seen that we have made some changes in the verb as well. Fine. We are changing the second verb form to third verb form, and we are using the be verb form before that. Okay, fine. This is what is the third rule of changing active to passive form. What is the third rule? That third verb form is used with corresponding tense. Fine. What is the meaning of that? That third verb form is used with the corresponding be verb of the tense. Okay, fine. For example, Sarah takes her break fast. Here Sarah is the agent, takes is the action, and breakfast is the object. Fine. What we are going to do? We are going to apply all the changes one by one. First of all, we are going to change the position of object with the subject. We are replacing it. Fine. Then it is takes. This is the main action or the verb. We have learned a rule that the corresponding be verb form. This is simple present. Simple present. What is the corresponding helping verb of that tense? They are is, am, are. Fine. Breakfast is. What is the third verb form of this main verb? Is taken by Sarah. Okay, this is how we apply the complete change from active to passive. Fine. First of all, the positions of object and subject are replaced. Then afterwards, we change the verb always into third verb form with the corresponding be verb forms of that tense. Okay. These are the major rules which are applied when to change a structure of active sentence into passive sentence. See, now one by one we are going to see that how different tenses, how different tenses are changed, how one by one which be form of the verbs are applied to each sentence form. Number one, change of tense. How that is done? First of all, simple present. What is the structure of simple present? Main verb takes plus object plus subject. Fine. How it is changed? This is the active structure of simple present. Fine. How we are going to change the passive fine of simple present? First of all, we'll be placing object first. Then we'll be looking for the corresponding be form of the verbs. That is are plus what we'll be doing? Third verb plus then it is the subject in the end. See, this is how we are going to change the structure of simple present into passive form. We can have the example of it. For example, students study different subjects. Okay? See, what we are going to do? First of all, we'll have to identify what is that agent. That is subject. What is the agent or the doer? That is students. Study is the verb. Different subjects, that is the object. We are going to convert it into passive form. We are going to position object first. Different subjects. Fine. We have to decide whether we are going to use is, am, are. Why? I am going to use are over here. Why? Because my subject, because this is a plural noun and we are using are with this. Different subjects are. What is the third form of study? Studied. Fine. I am using by before the agent, by, and then this is the agent at the end. Okay, this is how a sentence of simple present is converted into passive form. Now we move on to present progressive. How a sentence from present progressive. This was simple present. Now we move on to present progressive. Here, subject plus first verb form plus ing and then is the object. This is the structure of present progressive tense. But when we are converting it into passive, we are going to change this structure. We are going to object first and then be verb form. By what do we mean by be verb form? Is, am, are. Fine. Then third verb form plus ing and then in the object at the end. Fine. Or you can say by and the object. You can also use by in the end. Okay. We can always have an example. For example, Sarah is singing a song. You could always call this first verb form plus ing. You could always call it present participle, which is fourth verb form. Okay? Now, what we are going to do? We are going to position object first. A song. Be verb form is. Fine. What we are going to do? We are going to introduce being also over here. Fine. A song is being. Fine. third verb form. This ing form was changed to be verb, being. Fine. And then a song is being sung. What is the third verb form of sing? That is sung. And then by, and then that in the end the agent by Sarah. A song is being sung by Sarah. Fine. So what was the structure in the beginning of the sentence? It was subject plus present participle and object. In the passive we have changed object first, then be verb form, that is MR. Then we have changed the ing form with the being, and then third verb form by Sarah. Okay. Now we move on to present participle. Present perfect. Present perfect. What is the active structure of present perfect? Teacher, that is subject plus has, have, plus third verb form, and then it is object. Fine. And in the passive, what we are going to do? Object plus has been. How we are changing this has with the addition of been, and then third verb form, and then by, and then that is in the end, that is the agent. Fine. The example is teacher has taught a lesson. Example is teacher has taught a lesson. Okay, fine. A lesson. Object in the first position, has been taught by teacher. By before the agent, and agent in the end, and object in the beginning. Third verb form with the use of has been. This is present perfect tense. Not very interesting thing I'm going to tell you. Previously we have seen that the perfect progressive form of the tenses are not changed into passive voice, but ICAP has introduced this change as well. For example, why? Because of course that grammarians have introduced the change of progressive tenses now. Fine. Let's see how we change our perfect progressive. That is present perfect progressive. What is the active structure? Subject plus have been plus third verb plus ing, and then object. This is the active structure of our present perfect progressive tense. Fine. Okay. Now how we are going to change it into passive form? Object, fine. Then afterward, has been. Then again being. Then third verb form. And then in the end, that is the subject. See, we have used three helping verb over here. First is has, second is been, third is being, and then third verb form, and in the object, that is the subject. We can have an example. For example, they have been They have been watching TV for 3 hours. Fine. For 3 hours, that is a complement. And whenever we change an active structure of a tense into passive structure, we never change the complement. So we are not going to change this part of the sentence. It remains unchanged. All the change is being changed. All the change is applied to this part of the sentence. Okay, fine. Here, which is the object? TV. TV has been, being. Fine. Why I am applying this being? We have seen in the progressive tenses that whenever my ing form of verb was there, I used being in my passive structure. Again here I have ing form of the verb. To convert it into third verb form, I need to use this helping verb being, and then I'll be using that watched third verb form by they. What is the objective case of they? They is a third person pronoun and this is the subjective case. Whenever I am going to change it into objective form, objective position, I need to apply the objective case of it, and that is by them. TV has been being watched by them. What to do with the complement? I'll write the complement as it is in the end. For 3 hours. TV has been being watched by them for 3 hours. Sometimes we can always have the complement. We can always change the position of the complement. I could adjust it in this way as well. TV has been being watched for 3 hours by them. This is that what I have done. I have fixed the complement within the sentence. This is what I have the choice whether I can use it in the end as it is, or I could adjust it in between the sentence as well according to the convenience or according to the more attractive, to form a more attractive sentence structure. This was all the present all the breakups of present tense, how the present structure of the tenses of the sentences is changed into passive form. Now we are going to change the passive tenses. How one by one that simple past, the structure of the past tenses. How one by one the past tenses are changed from their active form to passive form. How the rules are applied to the past case. First of all, that is the simple past. Simple past. What is the active sentence structure of simple past? Salman wrote a book. Subject, verb, and object. This is the structure of the simple past. What is the verb? Verb is the second verb form. Okay? Second verb form. Fine. And then of the object. This is the active structure of the simple past. How we are going to change this active into passive? Object in the position of subject. Then the introduction of be verb form. Be verb form. Be is in the form of was and were. And then third verb form. We have seen whatever the form of the tense is, fine, we always use the third form of it with the corresponding be verb forms. Okay, and then in the end that is the position of the agent. Okay, Salman wrote a book. A book is an object, so I am placing it over here. Fine. What is the agent or what is the corresponding helping verb for that? That is was. What is the third verb form of write? That is written. What I am using before agent? By. Fine. And then who is the agent? Salman. This is the passive structure of simple past. Okay. You could always mention by over here, or otherwise it is obvious, as you have seen in the present tense cases. Okay. Now we move on to past progressive. Okay. What is the active structure of past progressive? That is, we can always have an example. Hera made a speech. That is, Hera is the subject. Sorry, past progressive. It's not past, simple past. Hera is cooking a dish. Hera is preparing or cooking or making something. Fine. That is subject, and it is not is, rather it is was. Why? Because it is past progressive. Hera was cooking a dish. Okay. Subject, and that is was verb plus third verb form and ing and object. This is the structure of past progressive. See how we are going to change this past progressive into passive forms. First of all, we change the position of the object. That becomes in the beginning. And then what is the position of verb over here? Fine. Agent. This is the position of agent over here, was, and this is being. Fine. Then afterwards third verb form, and then in the end that is the age by, and then that is the agent. Okay, is the subject. Okay, what was our sentence? Let me change it. Our dish was being cooked by Hera. Okay, our dish was being cooked by Hera. We have done the same changes as we did in the present progressive. That is what? Being plus third verb form. The only difference is of that of be verb forms. There the be verb forms were is, am, are. Here the be verb forms are was, were. Okay. Now we move on to past progressive. Is done. Now we move on to past perfect. Past perfect. Okay. We could make a change in the same. Had been. Third verb. This is the active sentence structure of past perfect. What is that? Subject, then it is had, and then it is third verb form. Fine. And then it is the object. Okay. What we do in the passive structure, that is had been, third verb form plus by. Fine. Okay. Teacher it was. Okay. Let me write a sentence of past perfect. Sarah had prepared breakfast. Fine. How we are going to change it into object in the beginning? Breakfast had been. prepared. What is the third verb form of prepare? That is prepared. Prepared by Sarah. Okay. Breakfast had been prepared by Sarah. Now we move on to past perfect progressive with a little change as we did in our present perfect progressive. Past perfect progressive. Fine. Here the only change would be like this. That is subject had been, third verb form, ing and the object. Okay. We can change the same sentence into past perfect progressive. What is that? They had been watching TV for 3 hours. Oh, fine. Now we are going to change the structure of this past perfect active sentence to past perfect progressive passive sentence. What we are going to change, object had been, being, third verb form and then subject. Fine. And as the sentence is concerned, what we are going to do, TV had been being watched by them for 2 hours, or TV had been being watched for 3 hours by them. Fine. No other major change. Only what we do, we just in the progressive sentences, we change that this helping verb have into had and all other changes as it is. Okay. This is how we have changed all the forms of past tense to their passive forms. Now we move on to simple future. How we are going to change the breakup of a future tense into perfect form. Okay. This is a little bit different from the present and past tenses. Fine. What is the structure of simple future? That is subject, and then afterwards its modal verb, will or shall, and first verb form, and then it is object. Fine. First of all agent, then it is modal verb will and shall, that is the first verb form and that is the object. Okay. How we are going to change this into passive form? Object first, will be or shall be. Okay. Then third verb form, and then in the end by, and then in the end it is agent. Okay. We can have an example. Aslam wrote a letter. Aslam will write a letter. Will write a letter. Okay. A letter will be written by Aslam. Okay. This is how we change a simple future tense into its passive form. Okay. A letter, that is what we use be plus third verb form. Be plus third verb form to form the passive structure. Okay. Now we move on to future progressive. Future progressive. What is the subject of future progressive? Subject plus will be and ing, verb plus ing, first verb plus ing, that is, and then in the end it is object. It is the active structure of a future progressive tense. We can have an example. Irfan will be solving a sum. Irfan will be solving a sum. Fine. To make it passive, what change we bring in it? Object in the beginning. Fine. Then it is will be. Then it is third verb form. Then it is by. And in the end it is agent. Okay. For example, what is the object? A sum. Will be. We have forgot one thing, that is the use of being. That is compulsory. Wherever you have to keep one thing in mind, wherever the progressive tenses are there, in their passive structure, being must be there. Okay. As here it is again a future progressive, we will must add being over here after this be and before the third verb form. Fine. That is a sum will be being solved by Irfan. It is not Salman, it is Irfan. Okay. What is the third form of solving? That is solved. Fine. This is how we have changed our future progressive tense from its active to passive form. Now we move on to future perfect. That is future perfect. What is the structure of future perfect? That is subject plus will have plus third verb form, and then in the end it is object. But what is the structure of passive structure of future perfect? That is object plus will have been, and then it is third verb form, and then it is by, and then it is agent in the end. Okay. He will have watered the plants. Okay. The plants will have been watered by he. He is the third person. Fine. He is third person pronoun, and that is the active form of he. We are going to change it into objective case, that is the subjective case. We are going to change it into him. Why? Because I need to have an on object, I need to have the objective case of this pronoun. So I am changing this he into him. Okay. So what we have done object in the beginning, then have been, and third verb form, and the agent in the end. This is future perfect. Now we are moving to the last tense of the future, that is future perfect progressive. It is actually a combination of perfect and progressive tense. Okay. What is the structure of future perfect progressive? Subject will have been, and first verb plus ing, and then object. Fine. How we are going to change it into passive structure? That is object in the beginning, then will have been. What do we do whenever we have first form of with ing? We always use being to detach this ing from this verb. Fine? Being, and then third verb form, and then in the end it is agent. Fine? For example, students will have been taking their final exams. Taking the final exams. Okay? Passive structure is final exam is the object. The final exam will have been being taken by the in the end agent. Students are the agent, and that in the end. This is the last tense and the last change of active to passive. See, one by one we have seen that how one by one a change is applied to each form of the tense. Fine. We have seen all the 12 tenses, how we have brought changes in the structure to make it from the active to passive. Fine. This was all with the sentence of affirmative sentences, that is declarative sentences. Fine. If the sentence is interrogative, what we do with that? Okay. This is what we are going to study, how the interrogative sentence structure is changed from active to passive. An interrogative sentence might start with a helping verb, with a modal verb, or with a WH family. We will see how that changes are brought. That is what we are going to study, interrogative sentences. First of all, what are the present form of interrogative sentences from present tense that might start with do you write on the notebook? Do you write? You better change it. Do you write a letter? Okay, fine. Or is she reading a book? Or have they playing cricket? Or it might start from any WH family, that is why are you making a noise? We can always take an example of who is knocking at the door. This is all the possible interrogative sentence structure of present family. This is how we are going to change that this active interrogative sentences into passive interrogative sentences. Fine. Whenever a sentence starts with do or does, it is always changed to is, am, are. Okay. For example, a letter. We have already seen that here you is a subject, write is a verb, and letter is an object. We are going to change the position of the subject and object. Our letter, in the beginning we are going to start with the do and does is replaced with the be verbs is, am, are. Is, why I'm using is, why? Because my this object is singular noun and we often use is with a singular noun. Is our letter written by you? Fine. This is what we have changed. We have converted do and does of interrogative sentences into is, am, are, and then afterwards object first, letter is the object, third verb form, then by, and then in the end this is subject. Okay. Now if a sentence starts with is she reading a book? If a sentence starts with is, am, and are, it remains unchanged. We are not going to change is, am, are into any other word as we have changed do and does into is, am, are. Is, am, are remains the same. Fine. Is a book being read by she? What is the objective case of she? That is her. We have seen that it is a progressive sentence. So we must use, whenever the progressive sentences are there in active form, we must use being over here. Have they played cricket? Okay? Have they played cricket? Now we see what do we do whenever a sentence starts with has or have. Do we bring any change in it? No. Rather, we would see that what is the number of the object. If that is singular, we might change. We have this option. If that is plural, we could change this have into has. As this is a singular, so I am changing this have into has. Has cricket been played by them? And in the end, the sign of interrogation at in the end. Okay. It is quite contrary to what we have seen in the narration. In narration, whenever we change a direct sentence into indirect, we always omit the sign of interrogation. But here, in passive structure, we keep it as it is in the end. Okay. Now we see if our sentence starts with a WH family, whether it is why or what or who or whose or how, fine, they all remains unchanged. Fine. First of all, we will place it as it is. Why? Okay. We have seen our noise is my object and it is a singular noun. So I am converting this is into are. Why is our nice being? My verb is it in the ing form, so I'm using being over here. Why is a nice being made? Made is the third verb form of make. Fine. Made by you. Okay. Who is knocking at the door? Fine. Who is the only member of WH family which changes its form whenever it is changed to passive form? What it is done? Who is always replaced with by whom? Who is always replaced with by whom in the passive structure. By whom is the door being knocked at. Fine. By whom is the door being knocked at? This is all how I can have different interrogative sentence structures in my present tense, and this is how I have changed all the active interrogative sentences into passive interrogative sentences. Fine. Now we will see that how we change the past sentences of active interrogative into passive interrogative. Let me write it down. Past tense. Our interrogative past sentence might start with did. Did he receive a letter? It might start with had. Had they visited the park? Okay, these are two possible changes which we might have in our past sentence structure. This is, we see how we change them. Okay. Did he receive a letter? Fine. Whenever a sentence in the past tense starts with did, it is replaced with the word was. Okay. Was a letter received by objective case of he is him. Was a letter received by him. Fine. Did is transformed to was. Had they visited the park? Fine. We would make it as it is, as we have done in the present. Has and have, they are not changed, rather they'll be changed according to the number of the object. Here we have seen that had remained same for the singular and the plural, so we don't need to change had into any other form. Okay, had they visited the park? Had the park been visited by them? Objective case of they is them. Okay, fine. Now this is all the change we could have in past. Otherwise, all other changes of WH family, they are there. Fine. One another change might be there. That is was. If a sentence starts with was. Was he performing his duty well? Okay. Now how we change was, it remains unchanged, like is, am, are. We would place same. Was his duty. Duty is an object. Being, it is a progressive structure. Whenever a progressive structure is there in the active case, we always use being for the passive case. Okay, being. Performed is the third verb form of perform. By. Him is the objective case, so I'm using it over here. So what we have seen, was remains unchanged, had remains unchanged, did is changed into was. Okay, fine. Now we move on to future tense. What change we bring in the future interrogative? Future tense. What change do we bring? Fine. Let me tell you. If a sentence starts with, will you plant a tree in the garden? Okay, how we change this active structure of future tense? Fine. Will, it remains unchanged. Will, I'll have to see you is subject, plant is verb, and tree is object. Will a tree be planted by you in the garden is a complement, and I have already told you whenever there is a complement in a sentence, that might not change, rather that is never changed, and it is placed as it is in the sentence. Will a tree be planted by you in the garden? You could always write it like this. Will a tree be planted in the garden by you? No change in the meaning of the sentence. As far as other interrogative pronouns are concerned, for example, if a sentence starts with WH family, the same rule applies to over there. Fine. If a sentence starts with has, have, had, with will, the same rules apply over here. Fine. This was the structure of passive sentences. This was all the how we have changed an active declarative sentence into passive declarative sentence. In the next lecture, I'll be showing you how imperative future sentence, active sentences are changed into passive sentences, and we'll be doing some practice of the tenses as well.